Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Pensacola, Florida, it's time for Pensacola Business Radio. Now, here are your Business Radio X hosts.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Keith over here, broadcasting live from our Pensacola studios. And I've got Ari in the studio with me all the way from Cleveland. Thanks for coming, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Well, no snow. That's nice and warm for you.
Finally.
So it should be a little break. You're like spring break like everybody else, right?
Well, not quite like everybody else, but yeah.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Yep.
So for those that don't know who you are and all that good stuff, why don't you kind of give them the 30-second elevator speech, I guess, for, what Ari is.
Sure. I am a motivational speaker, public speaker, corporate workshops, and I also do outdoor retreats / wilderness expeditions.
Okay, and then you do it for a very niche market. I
do. Typically, most of the outdoor wilderness expedition type stuff is for the kosher market, the Jewish market. That when I have a corporate client that is looking for that type of experience, I can also accommodate them. But, typically I'm marketing towards the kosher Jewish population for that particular business.
It's a pretty big specialty.
Yes.
Yeah. So small. It's not a skill everybody has, right?
No, it's not.
And you can't just go out and grab it and get it either. You kind of have to sort of be brought up in that environment and sort of learn the traditions that way.
I think you do need to have some prior experience. It's not something that you say.
I think so. Yeah. I would definitely hope so, dude.
You don't want to just one day say, "Hey, let's go out to the middle of the wilderness and just see what happens."
Yeah.
Because
we'll do kosher.
Yeah, those are the people who usually end up getting Darwin Awards.
Or falling off the cliff or, flagging the helicopter or something
Darwin
like that.
Awards, yeah. there is a possibility that I am the first Orthodox Jew to pick up a wilderness first responder. I don't know. There may be others who have done it, but I would imagine it's very uncommon.
So what does that mean? What does that translate to? Other than you're just you're the needle in the haystack, aren't you? you're
somewhat.
I need a first responder and I need him to be an Orthodox Jew, right?
Oh, no. Well, the Orthodox Jew has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
But it's a medical certification for being out in the backcountry.
Okay.
So we can do a lot of different things. And we, for many different emergencies that would happen in the backcountry, we're able to.
Which is the last place you ever want them to happen.
Yes. Yeah. But if they do happen, you do want to be prepared.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Is that, you don't want, you prepare properly, you bring the right gear, you do the right things, so hopefully nothing will ever happen. But if it does, what can we do to make sure that the people that it happens to will be safe?
Yeah.
Our instructor was telling us, he's like, I don't want these to ever be you guys. If you guys are leading a trip and this type of stuff happens, you guys made a mistake. But when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and you come across another trip that made a bunch of mistakes and you have to save a bunch of people, here's how you do it.
You want to make sure you got it all right. So, and I would think that if you did make the mistake, then your time is limited. You're probably not going to lead another expedition for a little while because that's a pretty big thing. And I know this from my experience of hiking and stuff, but when I was younger and I first went on, first couple times, I didn't realize how serious that is if you do get hurt or if you're not prepared, because you got nothing else out there. And it's 20 miles to the nearest whatever, or could be even just to the road, let alone to get a vehicle to get you to a facility or something like
Absolutely.
that. So it's smart to
know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
bring the manual with you, bring the survival gear, because it's always good to have reference material.
One of the lessons that he made sure that we learned is that when you're sitting there and you're writing up your notes and saying, hey, what are we going to do with this guy and how are we going to get him out of there? He made us try practicing carrying somebody.
Yeah,
and he made us carry a guy on a backboard.
It's not as easy as it looks on TV.
No, he made us carry a guy on a backboard for a mile, going over tree branches, over all sorts of obstacles in all different directions. So that when you're 6 miles away from that takeout and you say, oh, we'll just strap him to a backboard and walk out.
Right.
You may think twice about that before you say that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So let me ask you. So a couple things. One, where's the most favorite place that you've hiked? And then two, what have you taken from your hiking that you're able to translate into the motivational world that you're in, and the lessons, I guess, that you're teaching and translating over? What are those?
Okay. So favorite place that I've hiked. I don't know that I've yet gotten to a place that I didn't enjoy.
Right. Yeah.
Any weather, any place
is better than a desk.
Oh my goodness, so much better than a desk, better than a computer. Absolutely. I did take a trip to Yosemite last summer,
Very
and that
cool.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Totally epic. Even though, again, going back to that weather thing, we had there was a big forest fire happening there, the Ferguson forest fire, I think. So we had smoke, we had haze, it smelled bad. It was still amazing.
Still cool. Yeah.
Still gorgeous.
Yeah.
And and then go. What was the second part?
So, what lessons and stuff are you translating from all of that to, and then where are you translating it to? Obviously, I know we've talked before the show a little bit of the corporate world, but also a little bit of team building and that kind of stuff. But what are you pulling from that you're able to then translate into the real world?
Right. So in the corporate world, we are, first of all, we're very busy. And there's so much stuff going on. And, got my phone doing this. I've got my computer doing that. I've got my email over here. I got my social media. I got all this stuff going on. So one thing that I try to bring from the woods and from nature into the corporate world is a sense of peace, a sense of calm. The more that you get out there and you just take a walk in the woods, even if it's at a local park, doesn't have to be very far out, doesn't have to be super deep in the wilderness. It's nicer in the wilderness, and there's aspects to it that it get better in the wilderness. But just going out and taking a short walk in the woods will increase your sense of calm and help you with really everything, every aspect of your life. And there's this new trend going around, forest bathing, where essentially they take people out and help them be mindful while they're out in the forest.
Yeah.
And that's a good model, I think, for a lot of what I do. Where let's just go out there, let's
sort
relax,
of ground and center yourself,
get grounded, get centered, absolutely. And then inside of all of that as well, there's these team building aspects of it, there's these leadership aspects of it, and I've got and am developing different programs and different games and activities that all help bring these ideas out. I mean, when I was younger, I went on an Outward Bound course. And if you've ever been on an Outward Bound course, it's life changing. You go out there and they do something to you. They're like, oh yeah, hey, time for shipwreck, and you're like, wait, what? And
everything gets turned into turmoil or whatever, and you kind of have to survive, right?
Right. Survival is a good word for it, but less survival and more
work together,
perseverance, and working together. Absolutely.
Yeah, and which I think a lot of people don't realize naturally just happens if you go with a group hiking. Like, you have to figure it out. Like,
absolutely,
who's going to do what? How are we cooking dinner? How are we going to eat?
Right.
When you start having to worry about just the bare necessities of survival, a lot of the other stuff just falls away, which is the whole point.
Exactly.
Right? And you really start figuring out some of the important things and some of the things that aren't so important.
And then hopefully also, gear management comes into play, and that comes into, it can be part of teamwork also. Like, if we don't all make sure to take care of the tent,
then we're all sleeping out under the stars. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So I had my first experience of sleeping without a tent this last summer. Just in sort of a lean-to kind of thing.
Nice.
For you, maybe. I don't dig spiders and stuff crawling. I mean, there was just times in the night when I woke up and I knew something was on, and you just kind of brush it away and just keep going. But I'll take a tent and a sleeping bag any day of the week.
I hear you. I've slept out. Often I'll have a tent just because I don't like the idea of waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and having to figure out what to do about my wet gear and everything else. But there are times, like if I know that it's not going to rain or anything like that, there are sometimes that I'll
you just
go
leave the top off the tent, so you got the little mesh thing. Yeah.
Well, it also depends on what the bugs are like out there. I mean, there was one time I slept out by a fire overnight without a tent. I don't think we had a tent with us. If we had, maybe we would have brought. Meaning it was not a situation where we were out in the backcountry. Maybe we would have brought a tent if we had thought about it beforehand, but we didn't, and it was fine. The bugs don't really care. Everybody's very scared of bugs, and I don't like bugs.
I don't like things crawling over me, dude. It's just not cool
either.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there are some horror stories about bugs and the bad things that they can do. But typically speaking,
they leave you alone. They just crawl over you and they keep moving.
Yeah.
That's what I learned.
You're like a log to them. Whatever.
And daddy longlegs are they're there.
Oh, they're totally harmless.
Dude, I know.
Terrifying, but totally harmless.
Yeah, but they're there. So,
well, terrifying for depend.
No. I'm having flashbacks as we sit here and think about it. So.
I was thinking about I was out on a trip with kids. It was a front country car camping trip, and these kids went nuts about daddy longlegs, a couple of them, and they can be pretty terrifying if you've never seen them before. But overall, the more that you expose yourself to stuff like this, and this is the world that we live in, is that we're not around this stuff. I mean, think about 150 years ago. Bugs were everywhere, and nobody cared.
Yeah. Well, and you also had malaria and other things that went with it.
That's true. I'll take the anti-malaria
right?
day of the week.
So you're taking a lot of the aspects of survival and getting to the end of the game and the teamwork and stuff, and then you're able to really translate that into some of the environments that we have in the office space. So, I'll change the battery here in a second. But I want to know what made you sort of think, like, how did you get to this point where you're like, I'm going to take all the stuff that I learned from hiking and camping and stuff, and I'm going to try to translate it into the work environment.
So I just enjoy this stuff, and other people enjoy this stuff also, and the people even who don't know that they enjoy this stuff yet, there's this huge ability to bring people in and say, hey, this is a place that you can be, and this is something that you're going to enjoy if you just allow yourself to enjoy it. So I started on the path towards motivational speaking, and I started on the path towards this wilderness thing kind of at the same time. And really they were two completely separate paths. One thing was I found that I'm really good at speaking. I went into a juvenile delinquency center and I spoke to a bunch of kids that were incarcerated, and it was eye-opening for me. I mean, they had a great time. I was getting comments from them about the speech and the stuff that I did afterwards, and it was so incredibly rewarding. I said, hey, this is something I really can do. I was in the middle of looking for a career change, and so I said, hey, I'm gonna follow this through. At the same time, I was working with a coach at the time, and at the same time, I said, hey, this wilderness thing that's really been a dream of mine since really the Outward Bound trip that I took when I was 14. What can I do to move forward with it? So I had a conversation with my wife and decided with her, she opened it up that maybe I could do a few trips a year. Right. So I had these two completely divergent paths. At some point in time, when I started developing materials and I started saying, hey, what point of value am I bringing into a speech? What point of value am I bringing into a talk, into a workshop? I started to realize they're not that different. Right. And that's one of the reasons why one of the workshops that I developed is based out in the woods. Right now, I call it Thrive Wilderness, but I'm not really asking people to come out into the wilderness because a lot of people don't have a wilderness near them, right. First of all, and second of all, we don't need a wilderness. Yeah. We need a local park, a state park, whatever. We'll go hiking in the woods. We'll sit down. We'll do some teamwork exercises. We'll do some mindfulness exercises. Yeah. We'll do some just to help people bring them back to center. And so many people just won't go out into the nature until they've been re-exposed to it. Yeah. You have to have the epiphany, I think, every once in a while, and then you get the bug. You get the need for it on a regular basis. Yes, and it's also and I'm going to call it the attrition bug, and I'm not sure if that's quite the right word for it, but I've got all these things I want to do this weekend, and then you sit down in front of the TV. Yeah, yeah. And one thing leads to another, and nothing gets done. Yeah, nothing happens. Yeah. But if you create a plan, tomorrow I'm going to go this place, and you set your stuff aside to go, and that's I think that the people have written up about this type of stuff. The more that you make it easy to go and do that activity, the more likely it is to happen. Yeah, sure. And then the shedding of all of the noise is huge, I think, and so that's when I say epiphany. That was what it was for me. It was all the chatter of everything in our lives: the computers, the cell phones, the people, when it goes away, man, it's like, holy cow. It's never ending. Yeah. Honestly, if anybody is listening to this and thinking about going out into the woods, one thing that I will tell you to help you gain that peace. Use the buddy system. That's for safety. That's for safety. Yeah. Bring people with you for safety. Yeah. Or at least tell people where you're going and when you expect to be back. Yeah. But, for the small little local parks where it's almost impossible to get lost, put your phone and leave it in the car. Yeah. If you want to take photos, bring a camera. I know nobody really has cameras anymore. I don't even know. I was going to say, do people even own the cameras anymore? Get a camera. Yeah. Or if you want to take photos, get a camera. Put your phone on airplane mode. Oh, that's the other way to do it. Put it on airplane mode. The only problem with airplane mode is that it's too tempting to turn off airplane mode and post to Instagram or post to wherever you want to post. Shut it off, to maybe even get, break out your old cell phone if it has a decent camera on it. Yeah. And this way you just have because the idea is you want to be there. Right. You want to be in the woods. You want to be relaxing. You want to be able to hike without worrying about, what are they going to say about this post? What are they going to say about this? And really, you don't even need photos. In order to get that sense of relaxation, if you're focused on the photos, right, you won't be getting that sense of relaxation. Yeah. I think, do you think, you've seen some of these companies, big companies like Google and Amazon, things like that, where they provide moments of time in a person's workday where they can decompress, they can shut down for a second, turn things off. Like,
try. I do it here. There's times that you saw the hammocks hanging in the back of the music studio. There's times I'll just turn the lights off, take 15 minutes, you set a timer, and everything's in silence, and it's great. And I think that it's one of those tricks I learned from the woods. But I think if people started taking some of that stuff and applying that a little bit more, you might have a better work environment.
A better everything environment.
Yeah. Are you finding? I mean, are those things that you're teaching these people, and are they getting results?
I do hope to have the opportunity to teach people to recenter themselves. Again, that's where the workshop out in the woods comes into play. It's hard, it's because you can't take somebody who is stuck in this noise and tell them a couple of words and they're gonna just stop.
Right.
It's a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So I mean that's I was alluding to this program that I'm building up earlier, and again, I'm very cagey on the details just because it's really a work in progress. And it's not ready yet. But part of the focus of that program, and that's not even so much a workshop that I'm planning on giving and making money. That's something that I'm hoping to produce and then just really give to the world. But part of that program is focused on helping people get back to center and getting, helping them reach deep inside themselves, finding aspects of themselves that they never knew that they had. Yeah. Building upon those strengths. Yeah. And that's part of it is hey, look, we all learned in kindergarten when it's time to take a time out, a time out. Yeah. But how many of us are actually? We all had nap time still. Seriously. Hey man, there's a couch right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable to nap on though. I can tell you that.
Then hammocks, all right, fine. But I mean, when did we forget that? When did we forget that if you're having a tough time, it's okay to sit down and just take a minute.
Stop. Yeah.
Stop. Go out into the woods and walk. Even don't walk. Like you said.
Just
take
sit
a little,
for a minute.
It's nobody's willing to do that because what happens is because we have these cell phones on us all the time. There's never sitting for a minute because you sit down and you pull out your cell phone. That's become, I think it's the curse of our generation. Nobody's ever with themselves and only themselves, and everybody's afraid to be.
And there's a study, we were talking about this in our some of our tech stuff that we have going on here in the community, but the studies these days are showing that the way that we learn and the way that we are processing information is now so much visual that the non-visual or the reading stimuli are not firing in the same sense. So not that it's better or worse, but it's if you don't adjust to, or then you're not going to hit the learning curve as fast. So because there's so much video and visual and the phones are right there and it's connected, that's how the brain is starting to rewire itself to process, right? And so you take that away and you put them in the environment where it's not there, and some can not succeed. They just
can't make that transition.
They just don't get it, don't understand, and so there's huge blockage of things that happen in those environments that are very beneficial, like self-awareness, or hearing that inner voice, or just shutting your brain off for a second enough to process.
I mean, this is part of it is that there's never a moment for self-reflection. I mean, I'm noticing in my own life that there are things that I am experiencing or that are going on in my life or whatever, and I literally don't have the time to just sit down and process it. Yeah. And sleep just doesn't cut it. I mean, sleep is important, right?
Sure.
Hey, let me sleep on it. That's a big decision. Let me sleep on it. It's a big part of the decision-making process. But also stopping what you're doing and being alone for a minute is also part of the decision-making process. Yeah. And everybody, every single one of us, we can all benefit from taking the time to just let me that's a big decision. That's something you have to think about. Let me just go and walk around and think about it. Let me just sit down and just think about it. But this is where those cell phones come into play and the computers come into play. Put it down. Yeah. Walk away from it for a little bit. Enjoy the company that when you're by yourself, enjoy the company that you keep. Being by yourself for a lot of people is strange.
It's fearful because they don't know you don't know what to do. Right. It's like your kids. I mean, when I tell my kids to sit down and chill out, they're like, I don't know what that means. They don't know how to do that. So it's I don't know. To me, it was an earth-shattering or sort of groundbreaking experience when my father first took me out to go hiking for the first time when I was 11. I mean, just absolutely monumental point in my life that completely gave me a different direction and appreciative of different things and that kind of state of mind. And even to this day, I seek it, right? But I see those that don't. But I also know that there are organizations that use that philosophy or use that style, and they are very, very good at what they do. and they make some pretty profound statements and some great changes to the world of business, in their community as well as the globe, because they follow some of these old school principles of being able to shut down or using those same skill sets and tools that you would use when you're hiking.
Yep.
So
absolutely, yeah. It's the more that you can get people out, the more that I think a lot of our modern problems end up not being such problems. I mean, I work with a group of kids, and when the weather is nice outside, it's we don't have the gear to go outside when it's not so nice outside. Yeah. But when the weather's nice outside, we go hiking, and some of these kids might be considered by some people to be problem children or whatever, and
we're kids. We're all problem children.
Yeah, but I mean that's just not a side of them that I see.
Right.
I see kids who are just So I mean, we go out hiking and they're just all the problems that people complain about. I don't see it.
Right.
Because they're out in nature and they're in an environment where they're able to run a little wild and run a little bit. Relax a little bit, and so they're able to. And so I think too much the environment now is we have to only do this, we have to only do this, we have to be sitting in class right now, you only have 15 minutes to run around and
or they're so quick to put a label on it.
Yeah, to put a label on it. Yeah,
sort of pigeonhole people. Are most of you the environments you're working in that sense with kids, for the camping and stuff and the hiking, or are you like what's your ideal client for that kind of
for the hiking stuff?
Yeah, just for
the backcountry stuff.
Yeah.
So I work with this teen group, and I do want to expand local program offerings for either teens or preteens. Not so much little kids. I mean, I take my little kids out, but I'm not really looking to do anything with little kids because
you have to be a certain age and you have to have a certain responsibility.
A group of 7 and 8 year old kids, it's just
up a mountain is hard.
Not even up a mountain, just local trails. It sounds like a nightmare to me. I mean, my kids, and I know roughly what they can do, what they can't do.
Right.
And if they're having trouble, they're my kids, so I can deal with it. But
and the last thing you want on a trail is variables.
No. So I'm thinking about doing. I want to expand a local program offering for 11, 12, 13-year-olds, stuff like that. Small groups, rock climbing, hiking, stuff like that, and prepare people for this idea of hey, let's go maybe go out into the backcountry. But my ideal client, I have 2 different sets. So I want to work with teenagers who are struggling. That's the background that I come from. I was once a struggling teenager. To some degree, I'm a struggling adult. We all
I think we all are, yeah. And anybody who says otherwise is lying.
Yes, well said.
Yeah.
We're all going through things, and we're all learning about life every single day. I hope that I'm learning about life till the day that I die, because it's constantly a learning experience, and it's constantly stuff that we can improve upon. No matter how far you've gotten, you can still go further.
Right.
So if I can help some of these kids, maybe not make some of the mistakes that I or kids that I grew up with made, or to minimize the effects of some of those mistakes or whatever it is, I really would like to. So that's one aspect. I would really like to be able to get out there with, I guess you would call them teens at risk. There's not so much money in that, though, in the sense that a lot of these kids are coming from families which maybe don't have the money to pay for stuff like that. So the other aspect of it is business people. That's another ideal client, because business people, they maybe want to do this stuff, but they're a little bit scared. They've never been out before. They don't know what to do. They just want somebody there who's a little bit more experienced than them, whatever it is. Or maybe they just don't have the time to plan it.
Yeah.
I know people who are very comfortable going out into the backcountry, but they just literally don't have the time to plan, and they don't want to. So they're willing to pay a premium if you're taking care of all the logistics.
Right.
So that's what I do.
And I don't think. Well, the other thing too is I don't think that they understand how much of that environment you can apply to your team as a business owner, or as somebody who has employees, who has teams that need to work together, in order to make things happen. How much of that team building experience that you can create out there on a hiking trip that will benefit you tenfold when you're back into the office.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you were saying before, even just being out there is incredibly beneficial.
Yeah.
But
just inviting an employee to go on a weekend away is huge, let alone what you can actually do when you're out there.
So part of what the goal is, if it's a workshop that's focused on this type of stuff, part of what the goal is to have those experiences. Some of them may be natural and will happen naturally. Some of them may be artificial, and we'll create them by having everybody participate in an activity. But a big part of it is the debriefing process afterwards. When you sit everybody down, you say, okay, well, here's what happened. And, what were your thoughts on it? What were your thoughts on it? How could we improve on it? What can we do better? What did we do really well? What did we do not so well? What are some aspects of this that we can now take into the corporate world and really use?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think finding out your own strengths and your own weaknesses and then being true to them is huge.
It's incredibly huge. The founder of Outward Bound, that's I'm an alumnus. He has a quote. His name's Kurt Hahn. He said, "There's more to us than we know.
Right.
If we can be made to see it, perhaps for the rest of our life it'll never be the same." And I butchered that a little bit, but the gist is there. He was around during the Second World War, and he watched these people, I think in London, get bombed all the time.
Right.
And you would think that people who were getting bombed every single night would be terrified, scarred for life. But what actually ended up happening was they got stronger for it.
Sure.
Because every single time that there was a bomb hitting London and they didn't get hit, they found a little bit more strength inside of them. They got a little bit more perseverance.
A little bit more relief.
A little more resilience, a little more relief.
Gratitude for what you did have. And
they became, they were able to accomplish things that nowadays, if you ask people to accomplish some of these things, it
debilitates them. It shuts them down. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
So the more that you can put people into extraordinary circumstances that force them to reach deep down within themselves and persevere. Yeah. The more that the next time around will say, "Hey, I can get through this. Yeah. I can make the next step. I can get there."
So I'm fully convinced that that's the whole reason we're here, right? Like that's your life is a series of trials, troubles, tribulations, forcing you to grow. Period.
Growth.
Yeah. Whether no matter what I think you believe, I think that is the underlying theme here, and
Absolutely.
I think most people would have to agree because none of us have gotten through here without having some form of something. A trial, a trouble, something that we've had to work through, dig deep, whatever.
If it ain't here yet, it's coming.
It's right. It's coming. And some of us have made it, and some of us are still struggling, and some of us, have wish they made a left when they should have made a right. And I get all of that, but that's your purpose for right now.
So something that happened that's happened to me in the past and somewhat quite recently is that I'll get into a space mentally where you get stuck. Right? We were just talking before about growth, and so what I noticed after getting unstuck a little bit is that by being in that point of being stuck, by being in that place of I don't know where to move from here, I don't know how to go from A to B. I sometimes you don't know where B is, and so that's the difficulty. Is that okay? I know that I'm at A. I know that I need to get to my next step, but I don't know what my next step is. That's one potential issue. But let's say you know where your next step is, and you don't know what steps to take there. Or you're just that's I think endemic in our generation. In what's going on right now is that people are I don't know what to do next. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with that. And so they just turn on Netflix and they drown themselves in TV, or they drown themselves in drugs, or they drown alcohol, or whatever mindless pursuits that they have. And what happens is they're slowly killing themselves. Yeah. And I don't mean suicide. Right. And I don't mean anything other than the fact that when you're not growing, like we were talking about before, growth, when you're not growing,
you're dying. Yeah.
You're dying.
Totally.
I mean, we're all dying, but
nobody gets out alive.
You're right. In a long enough timeline, the life expectancy is 0. But if you're not growing, you're dying, and that's something that I noticed for myself. Is that when I would be stuck in some places and stuff, and so I would be struggling to find a way to pull myself out of there. I noticed that when I woke up, so to say, and I started pulling myself out of there, I noticed that when I would look back on that little period of time where I was trying to figure out the next steps or trying to figure out what to do or whatever, that there was a sense of death about me. Like a sense of that's it, it's over, it's done, it's dead, and not a tendency towards suicide or anything like that. I don't want to make any thoughts.
No,
like
I got
that.
you. I think I understand what you're saying.
But just there was no growth.
Right.
There was nothing doing. So I had this reality happening around me where I wasn't growing, and I didn't feel like I was making any headway towards any goals, and I think a way to put it maybe is that instead of expanding and growing, I was contracting and shrinking. Yeah. And you're just
kind of there. You're in limbo, right?
Right. And so that's the I think maybe the quote unquote death that I'm speaking of is that I later on, looking at it in retrospect, I noticed that there was this contraction. and not like a going down from a problem and then so you can
right.
Proverbs, 7 times the righteous man falls and yet he gets up again.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's not quite the exact quote, but it wasn't a time of like falling down from one thing and then going up the next mountain.
Right.
It was a matter of like, okay, I'm not sure what to do next, so I'm going to contract everything about me. But it wasn't preservation. It wasn't preserving anything. It wasn't saving anything. It was a shrinking to fit less space.
Right.
Instead of expanding to take up all the space that I deserve.
Yeah.
And maybe that's
so. Did you find during that time? Did you? The way I think it, the way I see it, or the way I think it, and I'm processing it here, is that the space you're talking about is sort of that point where you give up and you surrender, right? So you give up not because one, you don't know the next answer, and two, sometimes you feel helpless and hopeless, so you just give up. And a lot of times, what I think a lot of people may not understand is that when you're giving up, sometimes you're really just surrendering. And you're kind of letting things happen as they need to happen, and so you almost have to get to that place in order to find the solution, right? Because you're surrendering, you're giving up, you think there's nothing left, or there's no hope, or there's no next step, and so therefore you've kind of let go of all of that, and before you know it, the next step shows up, because you've gotten rid of all the other chatter that's told you, you're not going anywhere, there's no next step, so you give up and you surrender, and all of a sudden, there it is. So
a couple of those things. So first of all, giving up. Have I been there before? Not in the final sense, because that's not. Nobody wants to ever go there. And if you ever think about going there, by all means, go get help, etc.
Yeah.
Suicide hotline. Tell somebody. Talk to somebody. Whatever. Yeah. But giving up is. Yeah. I mean, some of those points were like you said. I don't know if they were quite the next step. So did I give up per se? Maybe there was certainly an aspect of giving up at that point.
Yeah.
Not ending it all, but like, I don't know what to do next. What do I do?
I'm gonna stop thinking about it for 10 minutes.
Shut down but it was more of a shutdown as opposed to a surrender. So when you say the word surrender, I think of an act, right? I am going to now commit to surrendering, and surrendering is a very therapeutic act, actually, right? I'm going to give myself up and surrender to this feeling and allow it to happen until it doesn't need to happen anymore. So I'll give you an example. I took some kids out hiking, that group that I go out with, and we got back to the car, and one kid who had never been out with the group before was like, that wasn't even fun. I didn't even like it.
Yeah.
Can we go somewhere more challenging next time?
He's like, what, Wally World?
No. I turned around to him, I looked at him, I said, listen, I give you permission to have a good time. I give you permission.
Right.
And by the time I dropped him off at his house, other kids in the car were like, what are you talking about? That wasn't fun. That was a great time.
Right.
Like, we didn't have to go. You didn't have to come. But by the time we got back, he's like, I had a really good time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like he just
somebody needed to tell him.
He couldn't accept the fact that he was allowed to have a good time.
Yeah.
And
whatever that good time meant for him.
Yeah.
Right?
And so he was like, that sucked.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, don't worry about it, but So surrendering ourselves to some of these feelings and allowing them to happen is, I think, going back to also what we were talking about before, taking a time out or just absorbing what's going on around you.
Be in the now.
Be in the now. What was going on with me, I don't know that it was an active surrender of like, okay, fine, I'm recognizing that right now what I need to do is take a time out. I don't think it was. I don't think
you stopped trying to figure it out though, right?
I did,
yeah.
and it became clear after a while. But this is. I think it's important for all of us to recognize that it's okay to have those ups and the downs. You have to have the downs, because if you don't have the downs,
can't have the ups.
You can't have the ups. And the downs are hard. Yeah. And you have to work through them.
But they're supposed to be, man. I mean, that's how you get there.
Yeah. That's how you grow.
I wish somebody had told me that when I was younger. I'm sure they probably did, and I just didn't hear it or listen or understand the concept.
Too.
But like, I mean, that's it. You got to have it, and it's going to be hard, and there is pain, and that's part of getting it. You got your head,
Yeah, there's no way to. Yeah, we were talking about.
You can't get there. You can't get there from here. You can't get there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. We were talking about mountain climbing before. You can't get to the top of the mountain without going back down the mountain.
Yeah.
You can't grow without struggles. If somebody without struggles is never going to grow.
Yeah,
they're going to be.
I wonder what that's like. It'd be boring.
I mean, when somebody's in the middle of a struggle, sounds great. What do you mean? I don't have to have any struggle?
Yeah, right.
That sounds blissful.
But then what are we going to do?
Right?
And you have nothing to do.
But then, right, death.
Yeah.
It's more, it's like, I just saw a news article about this, I think in Sweden or a country close to there, maybe it was Denmark, that they're doing this human art project experiment type thing. And, they described it a little bit as art, and I think maybe they also described it as an experiment, or maybe that's just me, using that word. Basically, they're planning on paying a guy about $2,000 or $3,000 a month to do nothing.
To just sit and do nothing.
So the parameters are is that he has to go to work, which is a like glass room inside of like this train station from like, let's say 9 to 5. He's not allowed to do anything else that creates money, or maybe he's not allowed to have any other job that pays him money. So he has to show up to work every single day and do nothing. I mean, he can do his own pursuits. He can, I guess, if he's an artist, he can do that. He can think. He can write.
He can
I
talk
think
to
he's
people
allowed to
outside
do
of
all that
glass
type
and
of
all
stuff.
that. Yeah.
But he can't do anything that is producing money or something like that.
Right.
And
well, I can see. I mean, I see what they're doing. I mean, it'd be hard to identify a purpose, right? Other than going to work to do nothing is your purpose. And so, what is that? What purpose is that really, right?
And it's a position for life.
Yeah.
When they accept a person, finally, like it's a position for life until they step down.
Wow.
And I mean, I can't imagine.
I bet it won't take them that long before they step down.
I'll bet you people will step down after a month or two.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would. I think I'd go like 3 days, dude.
So I mean, right. So I mean, like I when I think about doing it for myself, like I'm a productive person. So like if they allowed me to go in there and just work on writing or work on art or work on producing something, but it doesn't sound like they would be very on board with it.
I think in order to do nothing, you got to do nothing.
Starting a YouTube channel. Well, I mean, to do nothing productive. I don't know. It's.
Yeah.
I wouldn't act. I was like, I don't think I would even want to apply or have anybody apply for me. But that's the whole thing is that we are, as humans, we're built to be productive.
Yeah, and pleasure seeking, which I think a lot of people forget.
And pleasure seeking, but true joy comes from. And this is not my own thought. I mean, I'm bringing this from books that I was like listening to. I believe more from like Sean Acor and his whole happiness research, but. True joy comes from working towards goals. Yeah. And there is pleasure, but if you are all about pleasure, then there's nothing doing. There's not you're not going to be able to enjoy any of the stuff that you're doing. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so we're kind of getting to the end of time here, but if anyone wants to get in touch with you, have you speak, find out any more information, have you come do teaching stuff, how do they get in touch with you?
Okay, so my website is a short URL for my website is arigunz.com, arigunz.com, and the other way to get in touch, I'm active on Instagram. I post photos and whatnot, and just trying to think if there's other ways. I have a phone number and email posted on the website. Really, the number one place to get in touch with me is arigunz.com, and the Wilderness Trips is on its own brand, which is JTreks.com.
Which you can get to from your website, yeah?
Yes, you can get to it from the Ari Gunz website.
And you can get there from here. Yeah. Very cool. Well, man, I'm stoked that you visited from Cleveland. I'm glad you came down. I know when you leave here, you've got some cool parks to go check out on the way back to the airport.
I was checking out stuff yesterday also, yeah.
So you get to see our environment. Looks like the sun's starting to come out, so that'll be cool for your drive. Nice. And take some of the sand home as much as you're going to leave in the rental car. Take a little bit home because when you tell people that the sand was white, sugar white, they just don't believe you. So
I'm taking pictures.
Well, even that, take some home because it's so fine. I mean, it's great for exfoliating. It's good. Anyway, so
I'm sensing brand number 5 over here. Pensacola exfoliating scrub.
Dude, well, I mean, all the seashell Alvin's Islands, they got it all jarred up, man. People tourists buy that stuff all day long. Seriously, because I'll tell you, I've been to Europe and England and the UK and outside of the country numerous times to different places, and when you try to explain these things, they just
what the white sand.
They're like, no, really. I'm like, it's like sugar, and they're like, no, because every other beach in the world, except for a couple of the black sand stuff, it's all that brown or the really gritty or it's rocky and stuff, and so it's even shown in pictures. You can see it, but you don't understand. Like the texture is so weird.
I thought it's sand like that all throughout the Caribbean.
Bahamas right, but that's it. It's in the Gulf, and it's like
the
nowhere
Gulf on
else.
The other side.
Yeah,
okay.
So
I realize it's so unique.
Yeah, trying to explain that. So it's like trying to tell somebody in England that you can't spend a week in the States and go from New York to California. It's just not enough time, like
Right.
to explain that space, that vast, So it's all relative, obviously, to where you are. But take someone in a jar, because when people are like, yeah, whatever, and you're like, no, really feel it. It's so cool. It's just, it really is an experience. But anyway, man, guys, you can find us at Pensacola RadioX on Twitter. You can find us at Pensacola VRX on Facebook, or you can find us on our website at businessradiox.com, or you can find us on our live stream at businessradiox.live. And this has been Pensacola Business Radio, where business is good and your work matters. All right, I want to thank everybody for listening today. My name's Keith Hilbert. This has been Pensacola Business Radio. You can find us at Pensacola RadioX on Twitter, Pensacola VRX on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn at businessradioxstudios.pensacola, or you can find us on Instagram at Pensacola Business Radio, or on our websites at businessradiox.com, or on our live feed at businessradiox.live. If you are interested in being a guest on Business Radio X, please visit either one of our sites or our social media sites to find a link to book your appearance. This has been Pensacola Business Radio, where business is good and your work matters.